Okay, welcome back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast, Season 3, Episode 1. I am one of your hosts, full-time mediator in Houston, Texas, Peter Taaffe. Our other host, or second host, is Kyle Herbert of the Herbert Law Firm, plaintiff lawyer extraordinaire.
Present.
Thank you, Kyle. And third host, Bill Ogden, nationally awarded Trial Lawyer of the Year 2023 and partner at Fair and Ball. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Peter. That was an amazing. You didn't call me an extraordinaire, but that's okay.
I called you nationally award-winning. That's pretty good. That's like a fact. Otherwise, that's an opinion. There I go. And so before we start, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and then also Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us, give us a thumbs up, maybe a 5-star.
Leave a comment. Bill will respond.
Yeah.
Interact. I get in trouble. A lot of them get deleted once somebody else opens it and sees that I've gotten on there.
So we, as you know, guys, we sometimes talk about legal news and sometimes have entertaining and informative guests. And this week we've got a informative guest, and then we'll say entertaining. Say entertaining.
I'm thinking I'm teetering on to entertaining.
Well, we're gonna see. That was a challenge. Jennifer Hohman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We asked you on because you are you're very well renowned IT professional, at least what I saw and all the things you've done. And
Those are good.
She fixed my email like a week ago, and that thing is humming.
For us,
anybody that knows me knows he's full of shit. But go ahead.
Yeah, anyone who gets beyond like basics, we consider an expert in IT. So, but you've done much more than that. We'll get into that later. But you have a passion for human trafficking, fighting it, ending it, hopefully someday.
Yeah. And you have to phrase that right. You can't say a passion for human trafficking.
Exactly. Peter, your tone is so excited.
It's full of anticipation. He's like, this is we're talking.
Say trafficking. Definitely not a pimp.
Yeah. The no, obviously you're passionate about ending human trafficking.
That's right.
And so there's some legal components to that. Although you're not a lawyer, you help write laws, draft laws that are.
I pay to have laws written.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just as good.
She's a civil legislator.
Yeah, you work on lobbying to have those bills passed, and probably work with some lawyers on that. And then maybe there's a civil litigation component to the kind of overall fight against human trafficking. I know there's a Salesforce, there's an NDL. Did you know this? Against Salesforce? Yeah. And then there's
I know several lawyers that are working on it, and every time we talk about it, I get hate texts about how we've gotten every tiny detail incorrect. So I'm really excited to get.
Well, that's why Jennifer's here to
you, the expert.
So thank you for coming on, and thanks for educating us, and then also entertaining us.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I guess first stop is some background.
Okay.
So you IT, and you were kind of in the oil and gas space for a while.
So now I'm construction. So yes, I started off in the oil and gas world with Halliburton, the days of old.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Literally my favorite military defense contractor, Halliburton.
Lockheed.
Yeah.
But,
really?
I mean, look at what the planes are so cool.
Oh my God.
And it sounds neat.
It's so much better. So started there, and then went on to Hewlett-Packard. So I was in the tech industry for a while, invented a little piece of software, and then went back to oil and gas when I decided to have a family and not have to travel as much. And then moved on to ConocoPhillips. So that was fun, working for an operator. And then now I thought I was going to retire, and I failed at that. My husband's retired about 5 years, and now I'm in construction, large construction.
Just do it.
No, I should. It's not easy.
This could be your last day.
Have you tried retiring?
You could give me your resignation right now.
Yeah.
And I would accept it.
Yeah, really?
If you want me to.
Would you represent all the women I need to have represented against sexual exploitation?
Yes.
For free?
No.
Bill.
He'll say for free until there's a settlement, and then he'll take 40%.
She says that free consultation.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's on all of your websites, aren't they?
I don't know. You're the IT lady.
It is.
Okay, so this fight against human trafficking, how did you first get involved in that?
So in 2016, my family knew 4 families whose daughters were groomed and lured online and then trafficked for sex.
In
2016, my family knew 4 families whose daughters were groomed and lured online and trafficked for sex.
And so that was my question 4. So were these 4, did they all know each other? And
No, totally different worlds. So one was another oil and gas executive at the time when I was in that space. Worked for a large pipeline company. His daughter was gone for 18 years, but groomed online through Snapchat. And then he basically had to break the law to actually find her and extract her out of that situation. And Austin in the Domain, which I'm sure many of you have partied in.
That's where she was located, in the Domain at a commercial retail mixed use area. Okay.
And then one of the wealthiest areas in Austin. And I think that pimp were providing girls for bachelor parties. And so that was one. And I really didn't know what that was. I knew she went missing, but I didn't really know what was happening. And I didn't know much about trafficking at the time. And then that next summer, a girl out of Katy went missing. A friend of mine who I went to high school with, who's my best friend in high school, called me and said, "Hey, I've seen you advocate for girls." I'd advocated. I don't know if y'all remember the Chibok girls that went missing in Chibok, Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yeah, 276 girls went missing at the hands of Boko Haram. And so I'd been known to kind of put together a rally at the Galleria, raise some money, fund some advocacy work for those girls. They were just trying to get an education. And so I knew a few politicians at the federal level. And so this best friend called and said, "Hey, can I get your help?" And I said, "Sure." They brought me over, asked for connections to local. They need to get in touch with the FBI. And then that's when they told me that their daughter was with a pimp. And so I had no clue what pimping and trafficking, and the fact that we had Bissonnette, which is like a well-known red light district in Houston. We have about 4 or 5 of those.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Bissonnette.
Where Bissonnette?
Don't smile too much.
Way down.
I am so ignorant of all of this stuff.
Yeah, I had no, like we had heard like.
I'm really glad y'all are in here.
Like,
Makes me feel better.
Like, I've been staying at that Westin in the Domain
Yeah.
like 5 times a year every year since it opened.
Oh, every hotel in Houston.
And scene. Kyle was acting. That was all in that.
But I'm saying, like, if you said ladies in Austin are being human trafficked, I'd be like, okay, east side of town, like the Domain, you're like, that's like nicer than the Houston Gallery.
What if I said ladies are being trafficked in Tanglewood? How would that make you feel? Or Katy? How about the Woodlands? Or maybe even King?
To be honest, it's a little shocking.
Yeah.
They never
Well,
come
'cause
to
you-
your park.
How you children?
Yes.
How many?
3.
Girls, boys?
2 girls, 1 boy.
Ages?
14.
Don't screw this up.
Just turned 14. 14, 11, and 1. Almost 1.
14, 11, and 1. Did you give them an iPhone?
Yes.
And they have access to social media?
No.
No judgment call.
Good.
No, this is a judgment. So
Hey, high five.
So they have like the Facebook for kids where every message or whatever goes through the parents.
Okay, oh, that's good. Proud.
And they don't have Google.
Okay,
Like
good.
it's pretty limited. Like they only can use certain apps.
Wow, you're one of the few. So, I mean, the minute you put a phone in your child's hands, they're a victim, potential victim, right,
Okay.
of exploitation. So that was the second one, right? The third one was a little girl that lived in River Oaks, and her father was a consultant for a large, one of the big 3 in the oil and gas industry, consulting for PricewaterhouseCoopers, actually. And then the fourth one was a guy that used to work for me at Halliburton. His child went missing for about 2 weeks at the hand of a 40-year-old. So this was all from, April, May until November of 2016, where all of these things just got put in like right in front of me. And I'm like, what the holy hell, what's happening?
Between April and May?
April and November.
Or November, okay, sorry.
I would say April or May until November, all 4 of these situations happened. And
All
so
in 2016.
all in 2016. And so I've lived in Houston all my life. I'm from Nacogdoches, Texas, like the oldest town in Texas. But I've lived here since I was like 6 or 7 years old. I never knew that the Bissonnette actually existed, where, women walk up and down half nude, and children and men in cars, whether the Honda.
Wait.
Far southwest side of
I
town.
said, and children. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. We pulled like 12-year-old children off the Bissonnette before that barely, or 14-year-olds that barely had
There
clothes.
was a news report a few months ago about them putting up traffic barriers.
Yeah.
I thought you didn't know about that area, Kyle.
Huh?
I thought you didn't know about that.
No, but if you watch the news from time to time, Bill.
Okay, let's move on, Gus. So anyways, then what I did was I got a hold of this, the father of a survivor, the first one, and said, hey, look, my kid goes to Memorial High School. I didn't know this was happening. Let's do a presentation. I'm the stupid citizen in Houston that's been a native Texan, had no clue this happens. I thought it comes over the border, whatever, high-end escorts that choose to be prostitutes. And so he came to Morrill High School. Lisa Weir, the principal there, is still there. She allowed us. We had about 600 parents show up because we put a really good article in there in an email and said, hey, come see this. And so that was, we believe, in 2016, it was December the 8th, the catapult of what kind of woke some of Houston up as to what was happening. Then when we started doing those presentations, it was such a compelling story of what had happened. There was a father who was an energy executive willing to be vulnerable and share how his child was trafficked. He's an amazing human. And so then from there, we kept getting asked to do presentations at schools, Stratford, so on and so forth. That led to, in March, I got a Facebook message because I was doing a lot of social media and had someone managing it for me. And a young woman wrote me a message on Facebook and said, hey, here's my cousin. She was 14 years old when she went missing. Here's her Backpage ad. Everybody know what Backpage is?
Oh, when did Backpage get shut down?
In 2018.
18.
I was in the White House, actually, the day it got, with President Trump when we signed one of the bills, the day that it got shut down by the feds. And so here's her Backpage ad and her police report. She's been missing for 6 months. And so this was beautiful little girl, looked like a cherub. And so we went looking for her, and all you had to do really is basically set up an appointment with her on Facebook or Backpage, so on and so forth, and act like you were a buyer or John, and then show up. And I showed up with police and her parents, and her mom looked at me when we got her and she said, what are you going to do in 24 hours? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, you're going to keep her. She's home. We've saved her life.
Right.
And she's like, she'll be gone in 24 hours. I was like, what? What do you mean? Just rescue her? Her mom, her own mother.
A Stockholm type thing.
Yeah. And so, no, actually, she was a bit of a renegade, but did have a pimp. I would say that it was not choosing, but what happened is this. I don't want to tell her story, but basically she'd been exploited in a different way and felt so much shame. It had a lot to do with cultural as well, the culture she came from. And she ran away. Ran away in the hands of somebody that actually gave her drugs, and they were drug dealers. And then that turned into, well, you're going to sell these drugs first, but we're also going to turn you out. And so she went through a period of what they call breaking them down, where literally they literally just beat the shit out of you until you do what they want you to do. And so men that are buying girls or young girls for sex, they think, oh, they're choosing, or they've run away from home and this is a life they've chosen. It's really through force, fraud, and coercion, which is what the law has said. And every story has the same framework, just a different detail on how it happened. But it happens a lot to these people that, the police used to call runaways. But those aren't runaways. Those are just kids maybe that are having fights with their parents, so they get stuck in situations that are just catapults. Bad decision turns into a situation where they're being held, kind of against their own will. And so we got her home. She was gone within the next 24 hours. And then I swore, she was stoned when I got her. I swore to myself that I would find her again and figure out what the fuck this thing was. And we did. We got her within 2 weeks, and she became like a daughter. And then when you realize you help what people call rescue, I think it's a bullshit word, because it's a lifelong recovery from something like that. And so we looked for a place to take her, therapeutic care, restoration. How do you get, therapy for someone like this that's been through that level of exploitation? And there were no beds in the state. I mean, there was no place to take her. There used to be a group home, but it was full. We looked, and so I kind of was like, I looked at my husband like I've worked on homelessness, or I've raised money for my kids, overprivileged school, private school, but never raised money for something like this. So I promised myself we'd figure it out. So I invited about 20 nonprofits that said they did anti-sex trafficking work, brought them to my house, promised them I would donate if they educated me. And so organizations that are still alive today, Elijah Rising, Freedom Place, like all these different places that taught me what the issue was, that they do go through a level of sexual, Stockholm syndrome, that is huge, PTSD. And obviously drugs are involved, and I understood the issue. And then so Lisa Knapp, Lisa Porter, was in Austin, and the survivor, the father of a survivor, was going to go present his story in Austin. And so I met this woman, and she had started this thing called the Austin 20. And it was just, they were raising money for this one organization that wanted to open a safe home for domestic minor girls. And they'd call themselves the Austin 20. It was like these women, big Texas hair, Austinites. And I was like, okay, I like the tag name. I like the name. But they're raising money for one organization where I want to fill the gaps in Houston and not only create awareness, which a lot of people do awareness, but how do we provide trauma-informed healing solutions? How do we raise millions of dollars for pets, which I care about our pets and all that. But we raise millions of dollars in Houston, right? Where we're known as one of the most philanthropic cities in the world, actually.
Really? I didn't know.
Oh, absolutely. So we have people like Becca Case-and-Thrash goes over to France and teaches people how to raise money in the Louvre, right? And so we're good. We're one of the best at this. And so so I contacted some friends and said, hey, I want to start this thing called the Houston 20. And I want to fund the gaps in services for victims and survivors. And so we did. We got a lot of women together. We've raised $3-4 million so far, and then just started filling the gaps. And now, the numbers of cases I've helped either recover a kid. I have somebody a private investigator that goes out and now finds kids. He's well known for that. And he remember the Dallas Mavericks case that happened?
Yep.
Where the little girl went missing out of there. He's the one.
Talked about that.
Mm-hmm. He was on that case. I built relationships. We built relationships with law enforcement. The HPD has a trafficking task force. And just found different organizations that I trusted. I got to know them. I sat on some of the boards and then started funding and just kind of became a gifting tree to these organizations. And the number of cases, you'd be astonished. I don't like talking numbers, but the number of cases I've been involved with, whether I have to call somebody to go find a kid or walk the parent through helping find them find their child, or when we actually recover them and then get them into a program. Normally I send kids to Alabama because Texas does a really shitty job at serving these kids. We can't even get our foster care system to work well. And a lot
That says something. I mean,
yeah.
If you're sending someone to Alabama for children's services, that sounds not great.
No. I mean, and again, we're like one of the best at raising money. So Texas has a problem with group homes. There have been some abuse from group homes in the past, and we can't seem to get the foster care system going well. And so anyways, we did that, and then that was 2017. We kind of started that. So we became the Houston and Austin 20. I thought someday it would turn into Mothers Against Drunk Driving. But this is a topic that people just can't get behind and then stick with it. Does that make sense? It's, I mean, you kind of take on a secondary trauma of your own.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it because the topic is so kind of difficult
so fucking
to handle?
hard to deal with? Yeah, I mean, I've had to have my own kind of just like therapeutic process of how I work through hearing their stories when they want to tell it, and I try not to pull it out of them, and knowing what humans are capable of when they think they're having sex with an 18-year-old child, and really she's 16, but she's strangulated during sex, and she's supposed to be getting paid to be strangulated. I mean, it's just a really fucked up world.
I've got a couple of questions.
Sure.
Is there? You sound like you said there's a very typical pattern for victims.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a typical pattern for the Johns or for the trafficker?
Mm.
Are they coming from a typical place, a typical
Exploitation
community?
Well, no, I wouldn't say no. I've seen traffickers where that was a mom that was trafficking her two daughters.
Oh.
I've seen we've seen cases where there's a cheerleader who's trafficking the JV team. You see things online where he's supposedly a boyfriend and he's actually having his girlfriend go and put herself on OnlyFans and turn tricks. I would say, as we saw a case with the United Airline. It was United Airline pilot, the pilot who had the brothels.
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, it's the victim looks like any and everyone.
In our opinion.
In our opinion,
I almost remembered.
This is my new defamation attorney. So if I really piss anybody off, I've got good representation. Maybe.
Maybe
The buyers look like everyone. I've seen multiple buyers. The traffickers look like anyone and everyone, from where they're already making tons of money, and they look like they come out of a Vogue magazine to where they're the guy on the street just making some money.
Okay, so silly question.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between buyer and John, or are those
No, same thing.
Okay, so is there a difference between are there people going out as buyers who are specifically saying, I want trafficked girls underage, or are they just out there hiring prostitutes and happen to run across a particularly terrible situation?
I would challenge you on what you believe the definition of a prostitute is. That's what I would.
Let's say sex worker, Kyle.
Sorry, Bill.
That is the right term,
Thank you.
right?
Kyle's the term.
Or the, what do you call it, the PC term, right? Politically correct term. I would say that I can't imagine, I'll make this really personal, I can't imagine your 14-year-old daughter ever wants to grow up and sleep with 20 men a day.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you think of the word prostitute, right? Now, I do believe there are women that are sex workers that knowingly, willingly put themselves out there to make $5,000 on their feet, because some people have weird-ass feet fetishes.
Sure.
Right? And there are sites for that.
Yeah.
And so...
It's not plural. It's just 1 foot.
And so I do believe there are those, but I think it's a very small number in my opinion and my experience. Like, I'm getting good, aren't I?
You're?
In my experience, that when you listen to them, and the story of the prostitute is really of someone that's been trafficked.
Okay.
That to me is the majority, because I'm a strong, independent, feminist, conservative, and I believe I can do anything you can't except for carry a 300-pound man. And there's nothing.
I can't. No one's going to ask me to do that.
Right. And I believe in sexual freedom. I mean, I believe in, hey, I should be able to have sex with whoever I want. And I was single at one point and had a great time. But I also don't believe.
She doesn't think that now, Mr.
No, I'm very.
Mr. Hohman.
Yeah.
Mr.
Shout out to Mr. Holman there.
My poor husband knows very well who I am.
He made an honest woman out of it.
He did. He's only been one man for 20 years. And so I just can't imagine that that's the level of life they want to leave. So I question the word prostitute.
Okay.
Sex worker, yes. Like, you see some sex therapists. They have sexually oriented businesses. That's whatever. But I believe there are women that are... I've had conversations with sex workers who tell me the bill we passed, which was FOSTA-SESTA in the White House with President Trump in 2018, hurt their businesses. And they told me why. And I was like, okay, legit.
What was the name of the bill?
FOSTA-SESTA, Fighting Online Sex Trafficking Act. And what it did is it held technology platforms accountable both civilly and criminally, created civil restitution for victims, and increased criminal prosecution for these companies who knowingly facilitate the trafficking of children.
Was that the federal bill?
It was a federal bill.
Is that the bill that also looped in hotels into that? Because I know there's civil liability to a hotel.
Yeah, facilitators. That's right.
All the red flags.
That's right. Yeah. So there's some Anne. I don't know if you know Anne. Oh God, what is her? She's gonna kill me for her last name. But yes, that was the bill that I think.
Ann Johnson.
Ann Johnson. No, not Ann Johnson. It's a different.
Sorry, Ann.
And she used to be in a DA's office, right? Ann Johnson. Yeah, and she's in the House or something,
Yes.
in state level.
She's Myra.
Yeah, nice. No, that's not when she ran. So we ran that bill with Congresswoman Ann Wagner from Missouri, and it was and it helped knowingly facilitating. I think these days with AI, and we can talk about that too, is if you're on a tech platform and you're not using AI to identify whether you potentially look at the verbiage of somebody posting, and that could be a child, that could be potentially trafficking. We have technology that can do that. So that's
hold on. There's technology that I need to use to make sure I'm not talking to a child?
Only if you own a social media platform.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
They can flag it.
So this is holding tech platforms. So the Internet Association, I'm sure you're familiar with that lobby. They had about 37 lobbyists fighting against this bill.
Sure.
Because it's expensive for them.
It was hugely expensive. Well, now they're paying, some of the hotels and the tech platforms are paying the price.
I am both personally and generally aware of a number of hotel cases that have come and gone across our desks.
And I've had girls that I've helped advocate for that have benefited.
And none of them
it.
are even close. It's
No.
like, come on.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah. So really, what? How does the liability attach to the hotel? Like, what they got to do?
If there's human trafficking, and I haven't looked at this in probably 3 years, but if there's 2 years, but if there's trafficking involved, any business that made a profit from that
Transactions.
yeah, that full transaction is civilly liable.
But I guess my question is,
The front desk.
No,
they have a 24-hour front desk, and they say
that's when you go in.
I told you about that we recovered. We literally, the law officer may rest in peace. We lost him, but he showed a picture to the hotel manager at the front desk. He knew that dude knew exactly where that 15-year-old child was in the room, and knew that he saw men go in there on a regular basis and the pimp show up to take
They were like,
money.
do you have any reason to think this lady? And then before they could answer the sentence, he said, the prostitute that hangs out here?
Yeah.
Who looks 15?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Couple of questions, more just purely out of curiosity. Have during the your time doing this, have you ever run into a sex worker who you like talked to and they were like, no, this is my thing?
Yeah, University of Houston. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because when we ran FOSTA-SESTA, and here we are, we literally, I kind of, hopefully someday we'll do something, write an op-ed about it, but I call it the politician, right? It's a citizen who is lobbying on behalf of a bill. Put it this way, when we ran FOSTA-SESTA, right, we learned when we were lobbying up in D-Town on the Hill that all it takes was 25 phone calls from a constituent in their district or their area for them to pay attention. I think of the millions of people in this country. And that's how uninvolved we are with the legislative process.
Yeah.
That it just took 25 calls for them to say, oh, maybe I better pay attention. And so that's what we did to Cornyn, right? When he was sitting.
I was going to say, Bill calls Ted Cruz's house 25 times every single day.
Yeah. Well, it's super helpful for us.
Ted, is Heidi home?
Yeah.
Ted.
That's right.
Don't say that. Yeah.
What do you say? No, I don't want to.
I just go, Teddy baseball. It's me, Bill.
So yeah, I mean that's what. But let's go back to the buyer, right? The trafficker.
Sure.
What we have learned. There was one time I was really curious. Like we had a lot of organizations focused on victims and survivors, and very few, almost none focused on buyers to help them stop buying children and women for sex.
What?
Under force, fraud, or coercion.
Okay.
And then nobody focused on traffickers. Like literally, it was like nobody would work on it. They just got, arrested and prosecuted, maybe in Harris County. Maybe it was a big one. And so we have cases still sitting out there where we've got traffickers with known cases against them where they can't get it through this damn court system. But that's a whole nother topic we can talk about. But I brought a former pimp in from California. His name is Armand King. He wrote a book called Raised in Pimp City. And it talked about the culture of being a
That's where you're from.
No, Hamp City.
Pam City.
Not to be confused.
What's Pamp? Where's
It's silly.
So the book's called
I'm from Dearborn.
It's called Raised in Pimp City.
Armand King.
What city is
Armand
it?
King.
Okay.
He's from California. San Francisco or San Diego. I can't remember which one. But I brought him. I'm like, dude, let me understand the mind of someone that takes a child or a young woman and is like, hey, I'm going to make money off of your body and I'm going to make $200 an hour on you and I'm going to give you $20 for that.
Capitalism.
Right? I mean, in its shittiest form.
Sure.
Is that a going rate? Is that like a consistent?
About $200 an hour. Depends on how beautiful she is, right? If you can order online, I want an Asian girl that looks like this, is skin or skinny or thick or whatever. And, you just start negotiating. They're going great.
Got it.
Okay, so what did Armand
Asking questions.
Basically said that there was some level of exploitation in his past, right? He had gone through things, and basically where he grew up in the underrepresented area, it was either you be a drug dealer, you be a gang member, or the least of the worst, or the least of the worst was being a pimp.
Just like Friendswood, where I grew up. The mean street differences.
Cyber, we didn't have pimps in our area. And so I tried to understand and unpack the mind of that. And so it made sense to me. And so part of you I realized I had a little bit of empathy, not just a bullet for pimps and traffickers. Like there's something that makes them feel like they can take control of a human being and make money on her. And when she's a child, I mean, it's even worse. So yes, there's a little bit of background of where they come from. Is a specific part in the city? No. Yeah, I can find you a pimp in River Oaks.
Really? Wow.
Is there a correlation to Hollywood where you have parents making money off their kids' bodies already? And so everybody that, with all the trafficking and stuff that goes.
I mean, look at Justin Bieber. It's all coming out, man.
Did it come out officially?
I think Candace Owens was going to do something. I didn't get to finish the podcast.
I need to get, I didn't know it officially came out. Did it come out? Oh.
Whose podcast?
Candace Owens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
all right.
conservative. Sorry.
Don't apologize.
Okay, so let's talk about
bad ideas at the same time.
Let's talk about law enforcement and prosecution. So you referenced that there's open cases in the Harris County DA's office that are just stale, but we've got a new DA.
We do. Actually, Kim Nog did quite a bit for us. I will tell you that before Kim, we struggled to, first of all, they were arresting the women, right? The victims. So, I mean, you can't have a victimless crime, right? Prostitution's against the law. It is. I know some people don't believe that or follow that mentality. But prostitution and purchasing people for sex is against the law. And so if the perpetrator is the buyer, but they were arresting the women, who's the victim? Both of them are criminals?
Well, the prostitute, unless you say you're a professional and there's a video camera involved, then it's legal.
I don't think that's true.
That's
I don't know. You should know the law before I do.
That would be pornography.
But
It's legal to film.
that's under your scenario, both are violating the penal code.
They are, but there is a victim. And what
And you're
we've
saying it
learned,
was the policy for a long time.
arrest the women,
Yeah.
right? Because they're the ones that are present, right? Because when you walk down the Bissonnette and you see all these women barely with any clothes on, the pimp's right around the corner over, by the way, at the foods,
Sure.
eating right with the other guys. And so, so that's, what was I saying? I was basically saying that there was
On the prosecution.
So on the prosecution side. So they were arresting. Well, Kim kind of flipped that, right? There became this kind of mentality in Texas and now across the country where you don't arrest the women. You get them services and try to convince them to leave the life. But with that, you have to have services. You have to provide them a life of independence. They're making, how much per se an hour. And they're going to go work in the grocery store for
Right.
$10, right? So there's got to be this continuum of care that you have to provide. And so Kim really did kind of turn around, stop arresting the women. Let's go after the buyers. And so there you saw that mentality. Now you don't see, I think maybe too many people that were powerful got arrested as the buyers or the Johns. Their pictures, the PD used to put their pictures up in the paper. Remember that?
So, I mean,
I bet you have some friends.
well, this is what I was going to say.
Or the almost attorney general.
So
The Matt Gates was
I don't know if the guy was ever convicted, but we used to go to Fountain View Grill, Fountain View Cafe all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 15 years ago. And one morning, this is back when I would still get the paper delivered in paper. And this guy had I don't know if he owned the place or if he worked there, but he was the front desk guy. He had a very unique face, like Willem Dafoe. Like you saw him,
Yeah,
you
you're
remember
like,
to say.
that's it. Yeah.
I pulled open the paper and I was like, holy shit. This guy makes me pancakes every Sunday.
And he's buying children for sex.
Well, I don't know if he was buying children. It was a sting of massage parlors, and crazy enough, like you're not gonna believe this.
You went to that massage parlor?
They would stop. They would go into the massage parlor, and there was a cop, a female cop, working at the front desk, and she would say, "We're closed for now, but if you leave me your ID and your phone number, we'll call you to set an appointment." And like 50 or 60 of these boneheads left their ID and their phone number, and they all got arrested in a sting. But that hit home to me.
I've never heard that one. Like, give me your phone number. What I've heard is they
Maybe
go in, they
we
get in
might be.
they get in the room, and they're like, "Okay, I want this, this, and this." And like, "Okay, you're busted. You buy."
This was even dumber than that.
Wow.
But I mean, this was like, you're thinking like 2004, 2005, 20 years ago now. But it hit home because I saw, it's 50 dudes and they look like they're from some white, some black, some Asian, some Hispanic, all over the place.
Yeah.
But I was like, this guy makes me pancakes. What are the chances?
So Jennifer, you're saying they would target the Johns, but you're alluding to that stopped because we'll see these like busts
Every once in a while, you'll see a bust. Montgomery County is really good at it. Fort Bend County has been really good. Harris County has kind of changed the approach. They're doing these sting operations and trying to do a victim-centered approach where they're helping the girls. I don't know how many men they're really arresting, but they're also trying to get the girls and do a victim-centered approach, but also get to the traffickers.
You have to get them to flip.
That's right, to get them to flip and then call out who the traffickers are, get their phones so they can get the information. So they're focused on traffickers that way. I still think, when you've got a man that thinks he's meeting a 14-year-old child for sex. And they say that. I mean, you can see some of the text messages.
you see on social media now, there's all these,
What's that?
reels where,
Terry?
the guy, it used to be like the guy that would, on NBC, and the guy would come.
Chris Hansen.
Yeah, he do that. Now there's a lot of just do-it-yourselfers
Yeah.
who set it up and then just beat the crap out of the guy when they show up.
Yeah, there's
And
one.
put it up
His name
on-
like Vitaly or something. Is
Yeah, I know what you're talking
Yeah, he sets it up on
Yeah.
his own. Which I'm like, how are you cleared on the criminal side if you're posing as a minor and engaging in the conversation? Like, I don't know how. Maybe that's why the cops aren't
Well,
involved.
maybe committing assault.
and then assaulting. And who knows? Maybe you're wrong. I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, but he has a bunch of celebrities that come on and do it with him.
But it's interesting, things. But we got a better victim-centered approach in Texas. What's sad about our state is the level of services we have. We have a lot of organizations like Elijah Rising is growing, and there seems to be a lack of funding in providing services for victims. And I think people have gotten loose on not holding the Johns account. If there wasn't a demand, there wouldn't be a supply, is what people
and
say.
then if finding, you talked about getting a private investigator to help find, and you've had some success. Is that something that the police just say, we're overloaded, we've got to do other stuff?
I think that, so in the beginning, I used to hold PD accountable. I was like, this is bullshit. I tell you I have a missing child and we have evidence that something's nefarious going on. Where are you? And most of the patrol cops that come out to take those reports don't really, or didn't back then, understand what human trafficking was. And really, compared to prostitution, which people thought, should be okay if she's choosing that life.
I mean, it kind of makes logical sense if you're a cop, right? Like, I'm going to go out, cause a bunch of hassle, take this girl back to her family, probably not arrest the guy.
Yeah.
And then 24 hours, the sand is going to come right back onto the shore because she's going to go straight back.
That's right.
And it's discouraging.
And it is discouraging. And I think that, and then when the Human Trafficking Rescue Alliance, the HATRA, it's an HPD, continues to get funded, and they do some sting operations, and they had a more victim-centered approach, it got better. I would just say that I just think I've even slowed down. I mean, right now I just work on these individual cases where we've helped recover. And yes, we get a private investigator, and the PD knows this private investigator, so he does make sure
They
he
can
doesn't
work together all day.
right.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen in 2016, 2017. It was like butting heads. But here you have all these officers that have all these other things going on, and these poor families still trying to find their child. And so you just kind of become, I wouldn't say a vigilante, but you find your own ways to go help find kids. And that's usually what I call the digital game. There's a physical game and a digital game. Is where was her last known place where she was standing, right? Physical place. And then there's this digital game of looking at her social media and who she was talking to.
Yeah.
And it's always there. And that's why I sit on the board of Crime Stoppers, and Rania Mancarius and I have a podcast called The Balanced Voice. And she wrote a book called The Online World, and it's phenomenal. It basically teaches you to work with your kids, create a strategy for social media, teach them how to protect themselves.
So that was going to be my next question. You talked about social media on kids' phones. That I was going to ask, is that the common touchstone where the pimps find the victim, or is it like when I was growing up in the 80s, they would be like, I'm going to drop you off at the mall, but don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And you're like,
stranger
okay.
danger.
Right. And they were like, because there might be people trafficking. And you're like, what? Okay, whatever. What are is it always on social media? I mean, assuming that's how we all kind of, our common intercourse is that way all the time now.
It's always part of it. That's always part of the story. I think that's happening more and more because it's so easy for millions. I mean, if you think about the number of criminals in our community, right? The number goes like this, right? But when you look and who has access, when we were kids in the 80s, 70s, I'm going to act like I'm younger than you or your age. But your parents would say, go out when the lights go off on the street, come back in, right? And then they'd be like, if you see somebody passing by, looks like a stranger, come to the house, right? Or you would go to church, or you would go to school. Very few people had access to you as a child. Now we are handing these things to our kids, and millions of people have access. And there's no way you as a parent can make sure you have all the controls in place or monitoring and watching all the time. If you not have the monitors on, have the settings locked down, if you're not watching on a regular basis, I mean, not even that is foolproof. And so Rania wrote this book called The Online World, and it really gives parents strategies on how to, look, gone are the days where you as a parent can be my way or the highway. And what I tell people is my way or the highway has pimps, it has drug dealers, it has lots of bad shit for our kids. So you have to stop being an asshole parent, have conversations. And if you can't seem to get past your own ego and be like a parent that can talk to their child, go find a champion inside your family or your close friends who that child feels like they can confide in when shit's going bad.
You mentioned the first victim that you became acquainted with was kind of, I guess, groomed or via Snapchat.
No. The one I didn't help with that case. So her father actually rescued her.
Okay, so how did, as you understand it, how did that happen? Like, because I'm just trying to put parents out there like to be unaware. Like, what is their?
So she had gone to some social events and came across somebody. And I don't like to tell other survivor stories, so I'm going to be really careful with how I say it, right?
Generic.
And so came across some people and posted on her social media account that she was going to attend an event. And that particular pimp, trafficker, sent someone in to that event. It happened to be a faith-based church outing. And sent someone in to befriend her, right? And if you look on, we believe there are like 6 steps. The first step is befriending. And so befriended her. And then it was like a normal relationship, like just another kid your kid just met, like a new friend. And that led to going out and partying, going to places where she wasn't normally allowed to go to from her parents' perspective, and then ended up in rebellion, right? And my parents being an asshole, whatever. And then that ended up when just the right time when they're watching her social media, she says, I'm going to go here. And I need a ride, right? Because these kids are like snapping out things, whatever. Well, she had mentioned she was at a party and needed a ride. She happened to be, had been drinking. And the wrong person, that guy that had been watching her all those months, picked her up. And she didn't go home for 8 days. So it's like just one decision of, I think I'm going to get a ride from this guy that I've seen or known for a while. And then she never comes up.
And then there's straight up kidnapping, because wasn't that Dallas Mavericks
that
one?
to me was like a kind of straight. Yes, that was kind of a.
That's just straight up kidnapping.
Yeah, but that was kidnapping. When I think kidnapping, like the word like that movie, stupid movie Taken. Everybody's like, it's not Taken. Kidnapping to me is like all of a sudden you're walking down the street, all of a sudden you get nabbed, right? No, these are grooming tricks. These guys they've written fucking books on this stuff. On how to, there was a politician in Nevada that's a well-known pimp and had a brothel that has written books on how to groom.
Oh.
I mean, you can look it up. Look it up on
What
the
do you
internet.
think the Lord of the Rings is really about?
I'm not going to look it up because God forbid something ever happened to me. Yes, search history. That's my search history.
Your search history. That's
Can you just buy these books for us for Christmas? Our copies, our version of this.
I mean, you go to YouTube channels. I mean, look at all the music that we've been feeding our kids. And look, I'm not one of those people that wants to censor everything. I actually like freedom of speech. But look at all the music our kids are listening to, and pimping and hoeing and owning women and treating women like shit and abuse and all that. I mean, there you go. It's proliferating in our community and teaching our children and our daughters to. I think if you're a father of a girl, I'll tell you what my dad did. My dad basically made me believe I could beat the shit out of anybody and that I deserved. He came from a country where women were suppressed and oppressed, Iran. And I believed that I could get myself out of any situation. I could tell him anything and not be in trouble for it. And that I had people to confide in. And since I was the age of 4 or 5 years old, he told me, when somebody said, you had the ability to say, don't touch my private or I'll beat you up. Like I was empowered that way. And so I think that's what we're forgetting is we're not investing in our kids to help them understand the power they do have, the ability to speak out. That whole seen and not heard, that's bullshit these days. If you do that to your kid, he or she's screwed. And so
other than giving your kid the confidence to stick up for themselves and closely monitoring their social media and their phone.
Without being an asshole.
Well, let's not put the cart before the horse. I'm just kind of an asshole most of the time. What other tools, what should parents be looking out for to prevent this stuff?
If you see your child has a new friend, I mean, we all want our kids to like be friendly with everybody, right? Like be nice to the new kid or whatever. New friend, all of a sudden they're hanging out at different places that their regular friend group doesn't. There's a lot of rebellion going on. You find out they're sneaking out or going to parties here and there. Like that's just actually what normal life looks like. I mean, I think I snuck out and went to Astroworld and my dad found me on I was hell to raise. And so
Astroworld.
Yeah, I mean,
you monster.
I know, right?
Was there a concert?
I often say if I'd grown up in this day and age, I'd be on a pole. There was no doubt. I was a wild child. by far.
The one night I snuck out, literally, it was a kid's birthday party the next day. We were going to Astroworld. We just had to sneak out to do what? No one knows. We sneak out. We walk around the corner. Literally, a police cruiser pulls up and is like, "What are you guys doing?" We're like, "Just going for a walk at 3 a.m, just like 9, 11-year-olds.
Running the roads,
Just
or the golf course,
Yeah,
or the golf.
just living out here on the mean streets.
Yeah.
Just seeing what's up.
I just think you have to be keenly aware of what your kid is doing. Don't be too controlling, because that's what they battle, right? They're trying to figure out their independence. They're wanting to be, feel like they can have control of their lives. So you got to have this balance of having good instincts, emotional intelligence, adversity intelligence, and just raise kids that look out for each other. The biggest things we teach is look out for you may not happen to you, but maybe it will happen to her. So watch out for her. Let me know if something's going on.
At what age do you start having the real conversation with a kid or like your child on, hey, this is like, let me tell you realistically what I'm afraid of, and this is a potential that could happen. So
yeah, my son was 9.
9? Okay.
Yeah.
Mine's 10. So I was like, should I have this conversation with him?
100%. I think that the maturity level of your kid. Like my kid was 9, but he's probably like a 12-year-old because he had an older brother.
Similar.
And, my message to my son was, look, don't buy women for sex. Like, you know what? Look, when you get older, respect women. Don't take advantage of people. Be a good person. Be a good human. Let me teach you about human rights. I want you to watch what I'm doing when I defend and go to bat for somebody. But when you grow up and you became a man, just go to a bar and meet someone. Plenty of women are willing to have one-night stands. I hate to say that, but I'm just saying don't purchase sex. There's no reason for you to, as a man, to have to buy sex, or as a woman.
It's hard out there.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Question.
Jennifer punches.
Yes.
But, that was pre-crazy Terrence Howard, so
Yeah.
we'll let it pass.
We've talked a lot about underage girls, but I assume boys are also trafficked.
Shit, they get more for boys. They can be double for boys than they can for girls.
So
their rate is higher. The supply is low. The demand is high.
Okay, and so the is the same way they go about grooming them and developing them.
Over the hundreds of cases I've been involved with, I would say there's only been one boy who's from Alabama. And yes, same grooming techniques. Obviously, it most of the time is same-sex grooming, right? It's a man grooming a boy. And so, yeah, same tactics. But I would say if you have a child that's transitioning or questions their own gender identity, very, very vulnerable. Vulnerable to this, right? Where they're just not understanding.
They're dealing with all kinds of shit.
And all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We're in a world that doesn't accept and
great way to make them make bad decisions.
100%. So be very careful.
So if people want to help out, people want to get involved, people want to find Jennifer Hohman, and
don't
say it like that.
Don't reach out.
No, I was looking at some of the organizations you're involved with. You said Houston 20.
Yeah, well, Houston 20 is kind of, we were raising money for a while and filling gaps. Now we're really focused on educating the younger generation about how to advocate for other people.
Okay.
And raise money.
And then there's Fight for Us.
Fight for Us was kind of a tagline of which, with the legislative work, both at the state and federal level, I use that tagline as to why I do this.
Okay.
It's not an organization. Elijah Rising is an adult, domestic adult women is an organization focused on them. There's all kinds of places. There's
HAAT, Houston Area Against Trafficking.
Houston Area Against Trafficking was when I got all those nonprofits together to figure out how we could solve this problem in our city. But I can give you a list. You can put it online of places that I think, the women's shelter does a great job. There's Demand Disruption, which focuses on the buyers, especially when they have a sex addiction and are consistently buying women for sex. There's lots of organizations I can point you to. You got to figure out what you're passionate about.
And the group in Austin, several of them, their deal was to build the housing for.
They did. They actually funded a place called The Refuge. Texas went through some crazy stuff at the state level about group homes. The state of Texas no longer likes group homes because some foster care things that went on with these group homes. And so now the Austin 20 does have a facility. The problem in the state of Texas is getting a license to have a group home for these children. And so that's a big
Where do you have to go through for licensing wise?
Oh my
Where does
God,
what?
it's like-
I'm just asking, like, what brand, what department?
It's DFPS, it's CPS, and Department of Health that you have to go through to get licensed. But it's a rigorous process now. They had a lot of problems in the state of Texas with group homes.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
Yeah, and there was a lot of abuse. There was, but now we've got a whole population that still needs to be addressed. That's why I send kids to Alabama.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any legislative priorities for this coming session?
Yeah, at the state level, not really. I mean, I think we've done some of the things. There's a lot of the AG's working on a lot of bills that they consistently try to run, raising the age. Well, we did raising the age from 18 to 21 to work in sexual related businesses. Keep on raising the criminal prosecution and the fines and all of that for buyers and traffickers. So I think that work continues. At the federal level, there's the not safe for work content that we're worried about now. So in all these AI platforms, I mean, it's kind of oxymoronic. I'm a chief technology officer, but the AI platforms like OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, they're trying to figure out what their standards are for not safe for work content. And that leads us to the potential. In fact, Advocacy is a really good organization to look at the legislative agenda that they have. But we're basically saying, yes, you need to have criteria for not safe for work content, right? Because that's the ability for children to be and women to be and anybody to be sexually exploited on these AI platforms. Like generate a picture of a 10-year-old doing this.
Oh, as of right now, it'll do that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, because and that was our problem with, Backpage came down. In fact, the day that we ran, we were getting the bill signed by Trump for FOSTA-SESTA, but all these other platforms are not running algorithms to say, okay, wait, this may be a sexually exploited child. Yeah, they can do that. They can generate content based on these types of.
Why the term not safe? I mean, I know what the term means. They're like, why?
Having pornography at work on a corporate network, right? Not safe for work. If you wouldn't share it with and your monitor at work, you shouldn't. There should be algorithms, especially when it comes to minor children, right?
Okay.
This is the most terrifying episode.
I'm sorry.
A terrifying episode.
I'm really a fun person.
Dirty British.
Oh, yeah. You seem like an absolute thrill at parties with your stories.
I actually think, I've been on a little bit of a break, and I think the community in the anti-trafficking space knows. I think you deal with so many of these cases, and then you have the state. In the last, I don't know if you're a supporter, but the last administration that sat in the White House didn't do shit. And so they passed 3 bills, but they were bills they were appropriation bills that you have to pass all the time, for like funding. Trump's administration, we passed 8 bills. There were 8 damn good bills on the anti-trafficking space to protect children.
There you go.
That were.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I tell you what, that administration was so amazing to work with to pass bills at the federal level, and that's how we got FOSTA-SESTA passed. And so now, hopefully, some of the work that Advocacy is doing at the federal level will start to ramp up again.
Is there special funding for like DOJ to have a task force on this?
There is. I mean, the DOJ has task force. They fund task forces through grants, and then they also obviously have some good stings and things that they run at the federal level to get that done.
Have you seen that movie Blink Twice?
No.
Huh.
Is it a movie about trafficking?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't do it.
It's not super heavy.
Yeah.
I think the reason I found it entertaining or interesting, really, is because, to my mind, it's hard for me to right. It's a completely foreign situation.
Mm.
I don't know how a woman would end up that way. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. Right. I can't wrap my mind around it.
What was the storyline?
So the storyline is, for about the first half of the movie, it's some girls at clubs going on trips and coming
Sounds
back.
like my life.
And coming back intoxicated under the influence of
Yeah.
drugs. And then as the story progresses, they begin to realize that they're being trafficked and being fed drugs, and they're coming back with like just fragments of memories about what happened.
Yeah.
But there's always someone in their life that's close to them who's dragging.
Sounds like the Diddy parties.
It's
The Diddy parties.
Oh, yeah.
so it's a lot like P. Diddy, and like a lot of people say, well, they mirrored it based off of the Epstein Island stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not a comedy, but you watch it, at least I watched it and thought, okay, like those puzzle pieces fit together.
Yeah, the scenario could play out
Yeah.
realistically.
And
yeah,
and a lot
happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a survivor of Epstein, And I mean, it's just a slow, like these guys can wait 6 months to a year to groom these girls and these women. Why? Because the payoff is so huge, right? There's no investment in an asset except for feeding her alcohol, buying her Gucci purses or whatever, which maybe you say is expensive. But at the end of the day, the amount of money they can make if you're paying for a person for $200 per hour, I mean, shit, they could be a paralegal or an attorney and make, well, I know your rate's probably a hell of a lot higher than that.
So you're saying
But-
pimping's the long game.
That's right. I mean, it is a long game. It's absolutely, the payoff is, and there's so many, there's a replacement, meaning, so if she falls off and her parents come and get her, or family comes and get her out of the situation, they can easily replace her online in a minute of hours. They probably already got 6 suspects ready to become victims soon. So it's a money game.
So when you said you could find a pimp in River Oaks, do they operate? I mean, they don't operate the same
everywhere.
way. I know, but do they operate like? Do they have a relationship with like a trafficker person, and they just provide the?
Yeah, there was one. It was interesting. I can't say the name. Okay, so I was working at a company, and a young girl came up to me and said, "Hey, this is going to hit y'all's industry. I want to talk to you about anti-trafficking." And I said, "Okay." Like I'm thinking, oh, she wants to get involved with these nonprofits, blah blah blah. I'm like, "Sure, let's meet." We over coffee at work, and she was like, "I want to tell you first why I'm interested in this." And I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, my dad, who's an attorney with a well-known firm, obviously I cannot say the name.
Come on.
Nope.
Bill will represent you for free.
No. My dad was the middle pimp. I'm like,
What is a middle pimp?
middle pimp? What's a middle pimp?
Yeah, he's the pimp.
He's the guy in the firm
That
back
can
in the
get
day that and they had a party. Firm had a party. He called the guy that would make girls show up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those escorts who you think choose to be prostitutes, they got a pimp who's making the money because they make sure. So he got busted. Law firm let go. They also took his license. And so I don't want to share too much. It's her story. And so that's why.
How
She
long
had this-
ago was this?
Don't answer that.
Nope.
Just let it be
Thank
a
you.
question mark.
My attorney says I cannot answer.
Worst attorney ever. Boring.
No, it's just as soon as we're off this, we can ask her. Like,
That's his name, Boring Bill.
just trying to wrap it up so we can ask her off air, get the real scoop.
And
Yeah, so that's
So
it's called the middle pimp.
that's called a middle pimp. Now, I don't know if this still exists and if they're in law firms or in the law industry, but look, you can almost look everywhere and find a situation. In River Oaks, they have them delivered. Sometimes when you have houses in men have houses and families have houses in Galveston, you can look. We used to have technology, or we have technology still, that can look at the number of ads on the website. You basically scour the websites and see how many escort or date posts there are. And they go up in the holidays. Like during COVID, dude, Galveston went crazy because everybody went to their vacation house in Galveston and the number of ads increased.
Peter is the podcast's middle drug dealer.
Yeah.
So he gives us all drugs.
Mostly uppers to keep us awake when Bill talks.
Not bad. So that's kind of what happened. That's kind of the high-end man that makes a lot of money. He orders it like pizza.
In the
Yes, you find out that he was the middle pimp.
But probably, yeah, you get busted. It's hard to keep that.
He didn't tell his daughter.
No, it destroyed his whole family.
But
Firm found out. They
It's the-
fired him. They
he
took
was
his license.
providing girls at firm parties, and then the firm fired him for doing what they asked
Because he
him to
lost
do.
his license. Hard to be a lawyer.
I don't know the whole story and how exactly it played out, but that's what she told me.
I'm trying to think of the joke I could make by naming a completely boring law firm. I guess I won't.
so the
I would not on
Yeah.
that issue.
okay, we talked about Backpage shutdown. That used to be the place to go, and then but you mentioned there's some other what are the websites now?
God, Peter, you just
I
got to
mean,
be real careful.
Instagram.
I'm not going.
Instagram.
Okay, I have Instagram.
Instagram.
How does that work on Instagram?
Yeah, how does it even work?
Messaging.
Oh.
Private message. DMs.
Well, no, but how do you know who to message to?
Well, look at their
where-
posts. I mean,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Thirst trap. Yeah, so someone does a thirst trap.
dude with a lot of money. He has girls with boobs in the back. Oh, DM me if you want to have if you want to get together. He DMs. I want a girl. Deliver her here. I can show you.
You know, I honestly, this is the one where I do not need
Do you know-
any additional evidence.
And Jennifer, your phone. I have parental controls on mine right now. You can't use.
Well, no, that's a good point because we're talking a lot about how to protect your children, and that is if you're, because let's talk about your boys. You see that maybe you're like, hey, I'm down, and then they're now a buyer, right? Unknown.
We had somebody on our podcast. I think it's
You have a podcast?
yeah.
She already said this.
Yeah, Crime Stoppers. So I sit on the board of Crime Stoppers.
And you have a Crime Stoppers podcast.
It's called Balanced Voice.
Balance or bounce?
Balanced Voice.
Voice. Okay, I thought you
It's
said
going to have Balanced Voice.
Did we had a competing podcast when we invited her on?
We have 2 million views. How about you?
Well, aren't you fancy?
We'll let you know when we do.
Maybe we need a professional IT person to talk about sex all the time and crime. Maybe then we'd get a little bit of traffic around here.
As you can see, it's uncomfortable when we have to even say the word sex.
Yeah.
We won't even. Peter won't even look at me right now. He's looking above my head.
All three of us are looking and praying.
God bless his soul. I think, we interviewed a family who, a little boy, like 16 years old, and it's a public story, so I'll share it. 15 or 6 years old, great kid, went online, met someone, thought they were kind of creating a relationship. They had talked, whatever, several days, and she sends him a picture of her, obviously without clothes, and convinces him to send her a picture of him. And within seconds, the background changed. She disappeared. She was live. They were video. Background changes. And it is Nigerian men that come here and extort him for money. And within 48 hours, he died by suicide.
Oh, I do remember that story.
Yeah. And they're amazing humans that go and talk to the high schools about, online and how to protect your children. And yeah, it's crazy.
So the big thing for you right now is that piece, the education piece for the younger.
It is. I mean, right now, a big thing for me, I went through a huge amount of, raising awareness, getting a lot of people involved, running legislation at the state and federal level with a lot of friends, had a lot of help. It was never just a Jennifer Hohman show. That's for damn sure. With the help of survivors and overcomers who led the way on what we should do and what we shouldn't do, what we should say, how we shouldn't say it, that would, kind of offend them or hurt the cause. Now my husband and I are highly focused on some of these individuals that we have helped get to a place of recovery and restoration, providing them financially to be independent, get an education for themselves. So I'm not so much focused on getting the community involved. I think I've learned that the community kind of gives a shit for a little while, and it's such a heavy topic. A lot of us have thin skin, and they just kind of dissipate. And so I feel like at the federal and state level for legislation, we've really done a lot of good things. Like, I think, put it this way, God is not, and I know y'all don't think I'm a Christian because I cuss so damn much, but I think God opened a whole lot of doors and needed me for a time such as that. And the time such as this, it's meant to help these girls that we've pulled out of the situation become financially independent and not need someone else. My dad always told me, I don't care how much money he has, how blessed of a man you married, make your own money. And so that's, I think, what I'm really focused on is supporting these women to get a better life for themselves.
All right.
So don't come find me unless you need to find a child, and I'll help you get the resources.
Or if Liam Neeson is not available.
Yeah.
Okay, that would actually be kind of interesting. Has any documentarians ever said?
That's like a couple of people come from Hollywood and said, "Oh, we want to do a story about this. Let's do a story about." And I think if you ever put an advocate or an activist in the front of a camera to be the lead role, I think you're doing the wrong thing because there's a whole lot of survivors and overcomers out there who it's their story to tell, not mine. I mean, I've got some stories where I've chased people down in the city of Houston, stupid ass with a gun in my purse to go find a 12-year-old child. And that sounds exciting, but really the redemption is seeing these women, and boys get to a better place. So that's their story to tell, not mine.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks.
Please don't forget to email us. We would like to put these resources on the website and the YouTube and the podcast.
Yeah.
So
Right, Josh?
find it.
You can do that?
Right, Josh.
All right. Our producer, Josh Belen, and also our co-producer, Amanda Orr. Thanks for coordinating this, Amanda, or strategy group.
Or a bad one. I can't tell. It was very interesting. It's just
Terribly
very
good and horrible all at the same time.
These go down. Maybe you
It's like,
could.
Bill, you're going to learn a bunch of stuff, but also you might be being a bad parent right now. It's like, I got to.
We should have you back on a different topic.
Sure.
We'll talk about IT.
Oh, God.
Tell us about HTML.
No, I don't
Come
know
on.
how to write code.
Uh,
I just know how to tell people to do things.
okay.
All right. So I think your podcast is called Balanced.
The Balanced Voice.
The Balanced Voice.
Crime Stoppers of Houston.
Okay. And then any other websites you want to?
No, I'm sure there's a lot. I think NCOSE, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, is a really good place to start. And then most importantly, I think just everybody pay attention to your kids. Don't be an asshole. Be the kind of person that your kids can talk to or
I'll
find
order.
when they can.
Yeah, Kyle's a cool mom.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking of all the off-color jokes I make with my 11-year-old.
Yeah, you should stop. Or just explain why you are the way you are.
Like, she knows why they're funny. I don't know.
You're not awkward. You're not awkward.
Stop fast.
Bring us home, Peter.
Don't
All right, guys.
just be a
Yeah.
great dad.
Jennifer Hohman, thank you so much for joining us. And until next week, good night.
And we're going to now talk to Jennifer about all the stories she couldn't tell.